Me and Papu met through friends.
Mm-hmm.
Your grandfather Louis'
Parents.
I want to say grandparents actually.
It was
came
his
from
parents. 'Cause I
came
looked
from
at my
Greece?
baby. I looked at my baby book. It's
Came
his
from
parents.
Greece. Okay.
Yeah, there was his mom was from Thalia and his dad was from Mytilene.
Okay. And so they moved to Fall River, Massachusetts. And that's where your grandfather grew up. But he was not born in Greece. He was born in America.
So, what was it like just growing up in Manchester?
Growing up in Manchester was great. It was a different Manchester back then. It was a smaller city, and I think everybody kind of knew each other and knew of each other.
You know what? I grew up in Manchester, and I'm here. It's okay. I wish I could be somewhere else, but this is where the business is, and so here I am.
My husband started the business, and then the boys worked for him. Yeah, they've been taking care of that business since.
I had my own route, cigarette route, snacks, fixed machines, stuff like that. We did a lot of work downstairs in the Stardust room.
I don't know the story. I just know that he and Sandra were playing with matches upstairs. They lit the house on fire and didn't want to tell anyone, so they just came downstairs and pretended nothing was happening. So the house did catch on fire, and it did have to be. They did have to call the fire department. But you know how the house looks now?
Yeah.
That was the renovations they did after the house caught on fire.
Yeesh.
Yeah, but they, you know.
Alex mentions it every time we go over there.
It's like a famous family story. It's like one of those that keeps coming up and will never, never die.
Probably when I was 14, 15 years old, I started working in the business. Summertime, I filled candy machines. And and that's what I did. And I did cleanings of the trucks and whatever they told me to do. I go back to school the next day, and I start again after school the next day.
I'm gonna say I started working in the summertime when I was probably 12 or 13. I would go out on the truck back then, and for a week or two during the summer when I was really young, just filling up candy machines and actually cigarette machines, which are almost a thing of the past now. You hardly ever see those. Mostly lounges, bars. That was the main businesses that we would, install our machines in. I'm trying to come up with a story, but I may come back to that.
Okay, that's
Something
fine.
may come to me.
That's okay.
I know no better because I grew up in this business. So that was my childhood. And early on, my father got cancer. By the time I was 16, so I was really propelled into this business with my older brother, your father, we just worked a lot because he was out for 6-7 months. And that's what we did. And I was driving and moving machines, and we did what we could do to keep the place going until my father was healthy enough to come back and start.
So, what was your father like?
My father, he was a workaholic. My father was a workaholic, worked all the time, and we built what we had, and we kept it going.
My father believed in hard work, and education was almost second to him. Although he was a high school graduate, he was not a college graduate. He believed hard work would get you just as far, if not farther, than a college degree.
He didn't go on vacation as much as he should have, but my father liked to fish and loved watching football and playing poker with his friends, and yeah.
The business was
his business was his life. He couldn't go too long without keeping with the business.
So Papu was tough. He was a slave driver, and he made them work really hard. And I remember I'd go in there, and people were drinking and smoking, and they had, dollar beer. So you'd have a whole bunch of people there, usually really drunk, and your dad would be there fixing pool tables and cigarette machines and sometimes candy machines.
Very warm, and I have everything I ever wanted.
One of the things I always thought was kind of odd was that the phone number for the business was the same number as the house number at Yaya and Papu's house. So we'd be there for anything, and the phone would ring, and it would be a business call. So I remember thinking all the time, like, how could, Elaine stand to live in a house where the only phone she had was the business phone? So if she picked it up, someone could be talking on it, having a business call or whatever. So she just never really had any freedom of, or privacy for that matter, because that phone could ring anytime, day or night, and it was ringing right into their living room. So when I met your dad, he was working all the time. So we sometimes would get phone calls from Papu at midnight that he had to leave and he had to go fix a vending machine, like usually a cigarette machine at a VFW or something like that. And he worked in the weekends too, and he always got calls on the holidays where he had to leave and go fix machines and leave the family. And because your dad was the oldest, he was the one that always had to go first. And then your Papu passed away in 1997 in, I think, March or April. And Patty was sick at the same time as your Papu was sick. And then she passed away the same year, about 6 months after him.
So I was at a place in Nashua called the Tavern. And there was a gentleman of Irish descent celebrating at the bar. And he had many drinks in him. And telling me about Irish and how it's great to be Irish, the #1 country, blah, blah, blah. And I pretty much ignored him. And then he says, you, at that machine, your boss, I know him. He's Greek and he's an asshole. Really? Yeah, I know him. He's an asshole. So I finished up my work, and on my way out, I said, that guy that owns this company? I said, you're right. I said, he is an asshole, but I'm pretty sure he's Irish. And I left.